Hello and welcome to Summer Sunday School. This is Miss Marianne. I am excited to be with you today. I hope you guys are doing well and having a wonderful summer. So this is the third week in our Summer Sunday School series, How We Know God. So the first week we talked about God's name with the book In God's Name. And the second week we talked about what God looks like with the book Because Nothing Looks Like God. And this week we are going to talk about Where Does God Live? With the book, Where Does God Live? By Holly B. Illustrated by Kim Howard. I'm going to show you the back too because it's also very pretty. Before we get to our story though, a couple notes. One, I would still love to hear your questions about God. Can post those in our Facebook group, First Community Youth and Families. Would love to get some action in there and hear your guys' thoughts. Can also email those questions to me because I know we all have lots of questions about God. So would love to hear what those are. Before we get started with our story, let's do our opening prayer. I will light our candle and then take a couple deep breaths to get us ready. There we go. Got our candle lit. Now we're going to take a couple deep breaths and then I will do our prayer. Dear God, thank you for this way of being together. Thank you for all the ways that we can know you and know where you live. Amen. Get that out of the way. All right, let's read our story. Where does God live? I'm going to tell some of my older listeners, this book may feel just a little young for you guys, but my 4th and 5th graders, but hang with me. It's got some really good thoughts, so hang with me, okay? This is Hope. She's a lot like you. She loves her puppy and the color blue. She likes to laugh and play and sing, but asking questions is her favorite thing. Wonder if any of you like to ask questions. Where does the sun go? Why does it rain? Why don't snowflakes look all the same? There were so many things that Hope wanted to know, such as how many colors in a rainbow. She'd ask her friends and her mom and her dad, her grandmother Rose and her big brother Brad, the mailman, the grocer, and nice Mrs. Ying. She'd ask anyone, any old thing. One day, a new question popped in her head, and she asked her mom, who was making the bed, "Where does God live? Does God live nearby?" "Hope, God lives in heaven, way up in the sky." Looks like they're throwing a sheet in the air. Now, Hope hadn't heard about heaven before, but she knew that she wanted to learn a lot more. So she went to the meadow to have a few words with sweet Mrs. Peep, her favorite bird. "Have you ever seen heaven way up in the sky? Have you ever seen God when you fly far and high?" I wonder if any of you have ever talked to a bird. Sounds fun. "I've seen clouds and stars and skies of blue, the moon and rainbows, and some lightning too. But I've never seen heaven, though I've flown far and near. But the sky is so lovely, God has to be here." Hope thanked Mrs. Peep and went down to the stream to see Mr. Frog, who was chubby and green. "Where does God live?" she asked Mr. Frog. He looked up and smiled as he sat on his log. "Look at the flowers and the wide open spaces, the trees and the butterflies, these beautiful places. To me, this is almost like heaven, you see, and that's how I know that God is here with me. So the bird thinks that God's in the sky with her, but the fish thinks that God's in the stream. All of a sudden, quick as a flash, Mrs. Fish jumped up high and came down with a splash. Oh no, that's not true. That can't really be. I know God lives in the stream here with me. This crystal blue water is lovely, I know. God lives with me in the waters below. Hope thanked her friends and went on her way to hear what her grandmother might have to say. Her grandmother was wise and her heart very pure, and she knew the answer. Of that Hope was sure. I wonder if you have a grandmother like that. Does God live in heaven or down by the stream? Does God live in the water or is God a dream? Tell me, where does God live? I must really know. Oh, please won't you tell me, my sweet Grandma Rose? Her grandmother smiled, as grandmothers can, and softly she reached out for Hope's little hand. I know you're confused, and I'm glad that you came. Now listen real close, and I will try to explain. You know that God made everything, seen and unseen, the wind and the sun and the meadow so green. Flowers and stars and oceans of blue, trees and birds and rocks, and all people too. And when God makes a person, a star or a wave, a part of God stays in whatever God made. So God lives up in the sky, in the meadow and stream. God lives everywhere, and God is not a dream. God lives in the frogs and the birds and in you. When you're looking for God, it is easy to do. God lives in all things that you see, hear, or touch. God lives in all people. God is in each one of us. And when you meet people who are loving and good, they're letting God out, just as everyone could. And if you meet people who seem hateful or bad, they've forgotten God's here, and that makes God sad. God is gentle and loving and cares for us all. God gives us the strength to get up when we fall. God is always around to help us find truth, whether you're old or still in your youth. You're God's best friend, Hope. God really cares. So make sure every day to make time for your prayers. How should I pray, Grandma? What should I say? I want God to hear me. What's the best way? That's a good question. Her grandmother hugged her and said, "Precious you, just speak from your heart, Hope. It's easy to do. Tell God your wishes, your fears, and your dreams. Then thank God for all of your favorite things. Ask God to guide you in all that you do, and be thankful for all the love God sends you." Hope kissed Grandma Rose and went on her way. She had no more questions, at least for that day. And on her way home, she saw God in all things, in the clouds and the flowers, and in nice Mrs. Ying. And later that night, when Hope went to bed, she closed her eyes slowly and bowed her head. Dear God, thank you so much for this wonderful day. Thanks for the friends who showed me the way. Please help me tomorrow in all that I do. And don't forget, God, how much I love you. I wonder what you thought of this story. I wonder if anything surprised you in this story. I wonder where God lives. I wonder how God can be in everything that God created. I wonder if you like to ask a lot of questions. I wonder who you ask those questions to. And I wonder what you're going to do this week. Hope you guys are doing well. To respond to this story, I've got a couple options. You could make something creative, draw a picture, or use your Legos, or in some way be creative to show where you find God. Where do you think God lives? Where you think you can see God. You could also go for a walk like Hope did, or go in your backyard and see where you can find God. What can you see God in? These are all good options. Maybe try that this week. Hope you come back next week. Let's end putting out our light, our closing prayer. Dear God, thank you for helping us to find you in all of your creation. Help us to find you in us and in each other. God, help us to remember that wherever we are, you are. Amen. And I will change this light so the light of Christ can find you wherever you are. Blessings. Take care.